Nicaragua is gearing up for its general elections this Sunday in a climate that voters describe as peaceful. This Wednesday, Venezuela signed a memorandum of understanding with the International Criminal Court as the three-day visit of Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan QC came to an end. Iran said Wednesday it will resume talks on reviving a nuclear deal with world powers in Vienna on November 29th after a 5-month gap. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Katrina Goss. As Nicaragua prepares for general elections this Sunday, November 7th, let's take a look at the three main contenders for the presidency.
Daniel Ortega Saavedra, 76, and current president of Nicaragua. He is the leader and former fighter of the Sandinistas front. He is also the main candidate to win and be re-elected according to independent polls. Within his policies of government, we have the 50-50, which establishes equal rights and gender equality in the list of candidates for the post.
Here we have two presidents because we respect the 50-50 principle, and we have a co-presidency in Camara Rosario. Every day she's communicating with our people and letting them know what is being done for the benefit of the Nicaraguan people, without any political differences, without any ideological differences. There we have the works, multiplying every day all over the country.
Guillermo Osorno, evangelical pastor and president of his party. He has not been very lucky in the race for the presidency. He has never surpassed 5% of the votes at any of his participations. However, he sided up with the Liberal Party before 2011 and then with the Sandinistas front from 2011 to 2016. Now he is an opponent and says he is sure of his triumph.
I'm going to accept the victory and not the defeat, because we are not going to win. I am going to accept the result of the Electoral Council because we know that we shall win, and we shall win consistently. And the people must be aware of that. I will accept it because we will be victorious in this electoral process.
Walter Espinosa, 41, a member of the Assembly. He comes from a humble family in a populous area in Nicaragua. When you talk with him, you notice a religious background. He is not very well known in the political arena. He says that if he wins, his greatest challenge will be stability.
The quiet of the Nicaraguan people, with the help of God, of course, that will happen, and we are going to get stronger because we need to be politically stable. That's a main challenge. We are all Nicaraguans here, and we need to be together, and we won't let any other bloodshed happen, and we need to be economically strong so we can have a better country.
Altogether, we have 6 formulas that will fight for the presidency on November 7. On the same day, 90 members of National Assembly will be elected and 20 will be elected for the Central American Parliament.
María José Díaz, teleSUR, Managua.
Peru's Interior Minister has resigned following a scandal regarding a party. The move comes as Congress is about to resume debates for a vote of confidence on the cabinet led by Mirta Vázquez. Meanwhile, the government agreed to deploy the armed forces on the streets to reinforce security in the cities of Lima and Callao. Our correspondent Veronica Insausti brings us the latest.
The government authorized the armed forces to support the national police on the street for 30 days in the Peruvian capital due to increasing crime. This happens while local media denounce an alleged party at Minister Luis Barranzuela's home in Lima in violation of COVID-19 rules prohibited by a government decree just days before.
I'm in political problems, therefore I react and appear as the one who is going to solve the problems of public insecurity in a city or in a country like Peru that can be dangerous, and that's what my comment was about a while ago, because we have already had the experience of the military taking to the streets at the beginning of the pandemic, and it caused disagreements and human rights violations, and therefore we must be very careful with this aspect.
As a result of media pressure, the Interior Minister resigned, and with this resignation, the cabinet led by Mirta Vázquez will go before Congress next Thursday to seek a vote of confidence, as well as legislative powers for tax reform.
The proposal of the Ministry of Economy and Finance has been rejected absolutely from all sides. Now, in any case, I have the impression that the Congress will first resolve the vote of confidence and then discuss the extraordinary powers, and I have the impression that if approved, it will only be partially approved.
In spite of the fact that the parliament has a 75% of disapproval ratings, according to the last survey of the Institute of Peruvian Studies, the right-wing parties are seeking a legal way for a possible presidential vacancy. To protest against the situation, social organizations announced a sit-in in front of the Congress. The farmers will come, the indigenous people will come, and we will surround the Congress, and we will see what they are going to do to us. Enough of putting up with it. What do the congressmen want there? They only look into their pockets to defend the big transnational corporations. And that is the only thing they want. We need to eat, but to do so, we need our legislators to rule favoring the people. That is what we need. The population is waiting for the approval of laws that promote development and welfare, while the different political parties continue to negotiate their vote of confidence in the executive branch.
Verónica Insausti, teleSUR, Perú.
Former Argentine President Mauricio Macri appeared on court on Wednesday for a hearing over alleged surveillance on the families of 44 sailors who died when a Navy submarine sank in 2017. Macri made a brief court appearance and submitted a written statement in which he proclaimed his innocence. The Ara San Juan submarine disappeared in November 2017 and was found a year later 400 kilometers off the coast of Argentina. It had been crushed from an implosion apparently caused by a technical fault. Family members of the 44 crew told investigators they were followed and wiretapped, filmed and intimidated into abandoning any claims related to the incident. Macri is accused of ordering the espionage and faces between 3 and 10 years in jail for violating Argentina's intelligence laws. The court will decide within 10 days whether Macri should be charged or not. A judge had earlier ordered the prosecution of Secret Service heads Gustavo Arribas and Silvia Magdalani, who reported to Macri at the time.
They have been following us, intervening, profiling us for at least a year in a systematic and organized way.
And we'll be right back after this very short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. This Wednesday, Venezuela signed a memorandum of understanding with the International Criminal Court as the 3-day visit of the Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan QC came to an end. As part of the official's invitation to Venezuela, the court signed an agreement with the government of President Nicolas Maduro that seeks positive cooperation and complementarity between both parties. The prosecutor pointed out that the court is deeply committed to working collaboratively and independently in Venezuela and asked that its work not be politicized. The Venezuelan president also thanked the official for his visit. Maduro pointed out that differences were expressed in relation to the preliminary examination of the country by the court and requested support in a joint search for truth and justice between the Venezuelan state, its institutions and the International Criminal Court.
I am fully aware of the fault lines that exist in Venezuela.
Soy plenamente consciente de las fallas que atraviesan y existen en Venezuela.
The geopolitical divisions that exist.
Las divisiones geopolíticas, es decir.
We are not political.
Nosotros no somos políticos.
We are guided by the principles of legality.
Nos guían los principios de legalidad.
And the rule of law.
Y el Estado de Derecho.
And I ask everybody now,
y les pediré a todos ahora, en este momento,
as we move forward,
a medida que avanzamos
to this new stage,
a esta nueva fase,
to give my office
que den a mi despacho, a mi oficina,
the space to do its work,
el espacio necesario para llevar a cabo su trabajo.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro described the visit of the International Criminal Court's top prosecutor as historic and noted that it represents a new stage in relations.
The invitation extended by the Bolivarian state for a working visit in order to initiate a new stage of talks, cooperation and positive complementarity. Prosecutor Karim Assad Khan, these have been 3 favorable and positive days of talks, frank and direct debate, where Venezuelan institutions have demonstrated their legal, doctrinal and constitutional strength.
President Maduro reported his government's disagreement with the prosecutor's decision to advance to the next stage of an investigation into possible crimes against humanity in Venezuela, but underlined that the decision of the International Criminal Court will be respected.
I guarantee you that in this stage that we are about to experience, we will leave the background arguments aside, and we are determined to comply with this agreement between the parties so that the truth can be found. You know that we have different criteria regarding the move to start the investigation. We respect the criteria that you have put forward, and we profoundly accept the letter and the spirit of this historic document that we have signed. You as prosecutor of this criminal court, and myself as head of state and government of Venezuela.
In Guatemala, several indigenous and rural communities announced a national strike in support of those resisting mining operations in the coastal town of El Esto. According to a communique from indigenous leaders of the municipality of Coban in the central department of Alta Verapaz, from Thursday they will join the indefinite strike by Mayan communities of El Esto against government repression and the Swiss mining company that's contaminating the local lake. Indigenous authorities are calling on the Guatemalan government and the Congress of the Republic to immediately lift the state of siege in El Esto, which has seen troops and police deployed to prevent protests against the mine. They also call for the inclusion of the 94 delegations of the country's indigenous communities in the pre-consultation process regarding the mining operations. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. According to the United Nations, by 2050, 1 in every 5 people on the planet will be aged over 65. Cuba has been witnessing an aging population for decades. The official numbers show that in a country of a little over 11 million inhabitants, 2 million are senior citizens. This is why the new family code being discussed across the island includes older people's rights with an innovative approach. We have more details in the following report with our correspondent, Fabiola Lopez.
This is one of the most recent contents created by the Palomas project. Senior citizens are now taking a leading role in the work of this initiative as part of its line of social activism. The subject of an aging population, now almost invisible in media and entertainment, is an important part of Lisette Vila's work. The creator has her mindset on portraying all of the desires, frustrations, hopes and dreams of older people. I think it's a global issue, and I don't want to talk about the material things, although the economic situation is important, but I want to address the spiritual component. The fact that these human beings need a certain freedom, that they have desire, projects, that they need support, or as we usually say, that human support network, which requires independence, and they need to know they are valued. Paloma says that human rights are for all people. They are not age biased. Lisette Vila believes that the invisibility of the issue in the media and entertainment sector is related to cultural constructs, stereotypes, and imaginaries that consider older persons to be inactive, with no real social life, or diminished in some way. They spend their lives appreciating what I do, of course. Sometimes they underestimate me, or they criticize something I do and try to change what I do and how I do it, or they just advise me. The kid didn't speak. He was falling behind others. I was the first one to notice. His parents told me it was just me because I was old, grandma stuff. I lost my father and my mother. I lost my oldest daughter, and look where I am. So I tried and live for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. 88. You know what that means? I can't say it because people think I'm hanging on by a thread. The president of the Cuban Society of Family and Civil Law explains that the current family code acknowledges some rights of older persons. However, he says, the present dynamics require a deeper approach, like that of the Inter-American Convention on the Protection of the Human Rights of Older Persons. Senior citizens are going to be encouraged to take a leading role in their own lives, so they can learn how to grow old and do so with dignity.
Being old is just another part of life, the last part of life, but it's a phase when there are also new projects, and one is not alone in those projects, and one of those things for many is grandparenting. We have to acknowledge those rights that grandparents have. the right to communicate in the family with grandchildren, the possibility of them taking over care for their grandchildren in exceptional cases, maybe even as legal guardians.
Dr. Leonardo Perez Gallardo notes that often senior citizens are treated like children. Sometimes their children even make decisions on their behalf, ignoring the principles of self-determination and self-fulfillment. That is why the new family code includes recognition of older persons' rights to exercise their self-determination.
Senior citizens' right to live alone or choose who they want to live with is so important. Yet sometimes they are deprived of self-determination. In other cases, they can ask to have someone else present in the household, and they can choose who that should be. But they can also ask to live alone if they want to.
The idea is for the new family code to be a modern law that places affection, love, solidarity, and responsibility as the highest family values.
Fabiola López, teleSUR, La Habana.
Siempre nos escuchan.
Iran said Wednesday it will resume talks on reviving a nuclear deal with world powers in Vienna on November 29th after a 5-month gap. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Ali Bagheri, who serves as Tehran's chief negotiator in the talks, said the date was set in a phone call with European Union mediator Enrique Mora. Making the announcement on Twitter, the Deputy Minister noted that Iran had agreed to start the negotiations, aiming at the removal of the unlawful and inhumane sanctions on the country, in reference to sanctions the United States has imposed since Washington withdrew from the nuclear deal in 2018. The United Nations and the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission presented a joint investigation in Addis Ababa this Wednesday into abuses committed in the northern Tigray region, warning of possible war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by all sides during the year-long conflict. The Tigray People's Liberation Front branded the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission's involvement in the investigation as an affront to the notion of impartiality, while the Ethiopian government said its participation proved it's serious about addressing rights abuses. The Commission is an agency of the Ethiopian government charged with promoting human rights and investigating human rights abuses that claims to be an independent agency. While urging reconsideration of some of the findings of the report, the Ethiopian government stated it was committed to taking the necessary steps to provide redress to victims of the violations, ensure accountability and rehabilitate communities and areas that have been affected.
Violations we have identified may amount to crimes against humanity or war crimes and a number of other violations, but not genocide. The joint investigation team did not confirm that there is a deliberate or willful denial of humanitarian assistance to the civilian population in Tigray or the use of starvation as a weapon of war.
We have indeed a reasonable ground to believe that during this period, all parties to the Tigray conflict have committed to varying degree violation of international human rights, humanitarian and then refugee law.
Ethiopian authorities commemorated the first anniversary of the Tigray conflict this Wednesday with a candlelight vigil attended by military officers and soldiers. The commemorations come as the Tigray People's Liberation Front is said to be making advances in the country, triggering the cabinet to declare a state of emergency on Tuesday as the rebels moved closer to the capital, Addis Ababa. And we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Katrina Goss and thank you for watching.